It goes without saying that Wallace was one driver that wasn't really welcomed in Martinsville due to the actions that the 2311 racing driver did at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Although he didn't complete the prophecy of blocking other drivers in order to help the co-owner of his team, Hamlin, Wallace's hatred is still felt throughout the NASCAR fans. So, what was the reason that Martinsville started to boo Wallace? And has he learned something from his actions in the past? Before we get to that, we are giving away $200. Stay with us for more info. It was Wallace's return from the one-race ban in Martinsville, but it wasn't truly a warm welcome for him. During the racer introductions, Wallace received a massive amount of boos from the crowd at the track, and according to The Athletic, it was a bit more than what Kyle Busch and Ty Gibbs received when they were announced. At the Xfinity 500, Wallace finished 8th, with Christopher Bell winning the race and securing a spot in the Championship 4. Thanks to Chastain's video game move, he was able to propel himself to the 5th place and securing himself a spot in the Championship 4. Bubba Wallace spoke to the reporters prior to the Martinsville race starting, saying, "There's a lot of good things going into this weekend. I'm not coming back with a vengeance or anything like that. I'm just going to continue to do what we've been doing. And for the record, I have talked to Larson and we had a great conversation this week. I think the best thing for us is we both understand where our frustrations were and moving forward and how we both can handle those situations better." On top of that, Wallace said that he spoke with both owners of his team, Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin, with the latter one currently racing for Joe Gibbs, and having a legitimate shot at the Championship 4 prior to Chastain's move. They were understanding of the heat of the moment type things, but they were very adamant about how we need to handle those 5 seconds later. You need to think. Like I said earlier, you need to think before you do. That was the biggest thing. They still support me, and we're here, just have to go out and continue to build this team up. But it is what it is, and although Wallace has received a massive backlash from the NASCAR community, as many experts said that the one-race ban was something like a slap on the wrist for the 2311 racing driver, but according to Wallace, he has learned his lesson, and although he was massively booed at the Martinsville, he knows that actions like this won't happen again in the future. "I totally accepted the penalty and the repercussions that came from my actions. I talked to Steve O'Donnell and I talked to Phelps and I said, hey, I'm good with being the example. If we can keep this consistent moving forward, because it's happened multiple times this year and it's something that may still continue to happen for other drivers down the road. I definitely learned my lesson, but we have to be consistent, no matter if it's here at Martinsville or if it's at Daytona or Talladega. We've got to keep it consistent across all the boards, across all the series." It was a good conversation. One of the most painful things for Wallace was that he had to sit out a race that was one of his favorite ones, the Homestead Miami Speedway. John Hunter Nemechek was his substitute, and according to Wallace, it was a very tough challenge to endure. "It was tough. I hated not being in that race. That was one of those races that was circled on the schedule. The Toyotas have been really strong on the mile-and-a-half side. I really love running Homestead. I was legit bummed I wasn't racing, but I had to put that aside and still help the team to go out and grow and continue to gain speed with those two drivers." But what's the most important thing that we can conclude here? It's that Wallace and Larson had a long and productive talk, and they understood where their frustrations came from, so that is in the past now. Larson also spoke about the conversation he had with Wallace, saying that it was a very productive one and that he loved the outcome of it. "I thought it went really well. I think we both moved on from it really fast. It was good to have a talk and just kind of talk over the frustrations and mistakes on both of our parts and kind of move on and forget about it and get on to racing. I feel like we raced really well together in the past. I hope I don't make any more mistakes and we continue to race good." One major reason as to why the altercation between Wallace and Larson wasn't a massive one, and one with bigger repercussions, is that Larson was truly calm throughout the whole situation. While Wallace was angering and throwing tantrums, physically and verbally confronting Larson, he knew better than to do the same and do the same actions toward Wallace. Bubba also spoke about what he has learned about this altercation and what will change for the future, saying, "I got to think before you do. Going back and looking from a 10,000-foot view definitely could have handled everything way different. I put myself in a bad light. I put our team in a bad light, our sponsors. It's just something that I'm not proud of. Moving on, moving forward, you are not allowed to make that mistake." And rest assured that Bubba is on the verge of being banned from NASCAR, not just from one race, but for the remainder of the season, if something similar to this happens in 2023. That is something that many other experts have also pointed out, such as Kyle Petty. Kyle is one of the experts that has been harsh towards Bubba and his actions on the grid, saying that they cannot go unnoted like that, and one race ban is something that is considered a funny punishment. He should have been suspended for the rest of the year. Rest of the year. He drives for Denny Hamlin, who has been vocal about safety. His teammate, Kurt Busch, the only reason he's in the number 45 car is his teammate's career was all but ended because of an accident in this car that the drivers have vocalized that it needs to be safer. He turns a guy in the right rear into the outside wall intentionally. Steering brake, that's laughable. Turns a guy into the outside wall, then walks across the racetrack. First you intentionally wreck somebody, that's a suspension. He walks across the racetrack and cars are going by him on both sides. That's not safe, that should be another suspension. Physically confronts a driver, shoves him, that's a physical confrontation. If I do that on the sidewalk, I'm in handcuffs somewhere. So he physically confronts this driver, shoves an official, doesn't get in an ambulance, walks back to the pits, and then stands and bold-faced tells a fib. The lesson should be the rest of the year. Just the rest of the year. That's just me. On top of that, Wallace was bashed for dodging an interview prior to the Miami Speedway on NBC. During Sunday's Countdown to Green pre-race show in Miami, Snyder, who is one of the leaders of this show, said that Wallace was offered a Zoom interview for the show, but he declined it. 2311 Racing were also bashed for the way they've handled the situation from Kyle Petty, especially after the fact that they took so long to give the public's response regarding the Wallace incident. Kyle Petty spoke about it during the Countdown to Green pre-race show, adding, "I applaud Bubba and I applaud 2311 for putting this out," said Petty for the apology. But in a world, and I'm cynical, so let's just go ahead and say that, in a world of social media where we post everything, silence sometimes says more than the words that are written, and we have heard nothing from Bubba Wallace since this incident happened. We have heard nothing publicly until yesterday. Denny Hamlin finally spoke up, and kudos to Denny Hamlin for speaking up on behalf of 2311, but the silence from that camp has been deafening. With that being said, what do you think about Bubba Wallace being booed at Martinsville? Do you think that it was deserved, given the fact that he did cause a havoc on the grid? Or do you think that the driver has learned what he has to learn from the altercations with Larson and will be a much better version of himself in the future? In the beginning of the video, we told you we are giving away $200. This means we are giving away 4 $50 Amazon gift cards to our loyal NASCAR OFFTRACK viewers. All you need to do to enter is subscribe to the channel, like this video, and comment what you think about Bubba. We will be selecting 4 random winners from the comments list once this video hits 300,000 views. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, you like the video, and comment in the section below. See you next time.